Good evening. I'd like to call the August meeting of the West Bend Park and Recreation Commission to order. Let it be noted, we do have a quorum established. Moving onwards, the first item to consider is the approval of the minutes from the commission meeting from July 25th, 2019. Entertain a motion to that effect.
Make a motion to approve?
Any questions, corrections, comments? If not, all in favor of said motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Motion's carried. Thank you. Moving on to unfinished business. Item A, update on the library recreation center. Who's that?
Is that gonna be Nick?
Sure, I can start the conversation.
Thank you.
On Friday, we met, our library rec committee, met as a group, and we also had, Mark from Zimmerman, the contractor, and he had some questions regarding the design, and we had some questions as well, so we talked through that. And, it was good discussion, got some questions answered. Still remains the question as far as the funding. Basically, we updated the committee that Recreation Division had about $100,000 to commit to the project, perhaps some money from friends, perhaps some funds from the PARC fund as well. Still working with the library board, what they're willing to commit, they're still kind of talking that over as well. I visit the library board Tuesday evening. They're kind of looking over their financial reports as well. Kind of give them an update about the project as far as the design and why we need it and what the usage would be. And obviously the library could use the space as well for programming needs or expansion as they see fit. So we're kind of basically with the design that we have from Zimmerman is about $400,000 to continue with the project, to continue moving forward. We would like to put the project to bid in November, but we're kind of looking at that amount of $400,000, and like I just said, the recreation division's got about $100,000 towards the project, so we're about $300,000. I was looking towards the library to come up with that for the project to keep it moving, and we can talk about around rental space, lease agreements as far as from future program revenue. But that's kind of where we're at with the project as of today.
How receptive were they to the plan?
They seemed positive about it. I think they kind of had some ideas as far as what they could use the space for. I don't know how much they're going to be willing to commit. I guess is like I said, we're hopefully in September. Their next meeting is September 17th. I kind of gave them my thoughts that like them to kind of have an amount that they're comfortable with to put towards the project by then, to keep it moving forward. So I guess we'll find out then. So. And I think Jay and I are going to plan to kind of meet and kind of maybe look at the financial situation too, and see if there's some funding that we can possibly put towards the projects on both sides.
Anybody else have any questions or comments for Nick?
Yeah, I think a big key, it seemed like, was the library board. When we talked, they seemed pretty receptive to, but I think when you met Tuesday, that same receptiveness wasn't there. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. They were talking, they were adding numbers together that total a couple $100,000, which would get the thing kind of rolling relatively decent. And now they're not backing away or anything, but just they got to discuss, and I got it, before they spend that kind of money too, they have to realize what benefits is for them also. So I think that's going to be a huge part of to see what they come forward with. And I'm glad you mentioned, hopefully we get a rough number from them that they would be willing to come forward with.
Yeah, and I know on Tuesday they talked as far as too, like Amy, their director, is kind of think of some usages that they could have that she could come back to her board with and say, we would use this space for this and that as well too. So I think the library board kind of wants to see what their benefits would, other than just putting bodies through the door. Obviously, they know that their usage of the building would increase because of the rec programs that would be offered down there. So I think they're open to that and receptive to that and excited about it, but I think they would like to see how it benefits them as well too. So
Are they self-funding or responsible for their own
They're
funds?
a quasi-enterprise fund, so they retain all the funds that the county in the city and that they generate on their own on an annual basis. So they keep a sizable fund balance, whereas other departments other than water and sewer who are also enterprise funds and cable TV, that's our fourth enterprise fund. So yes, they are funded separately.
Okay. Yep. Any other questions or comments on the part of anybody else? If not, okay, we'll move on next to a Riverwalk update.
So the end of August, you saw the plans that we have over there, the concept plans, and some scenes from SEH that they put together. We're still working on the concept plans for the west side and finishing up like details. Jay and I have been meeting with business owners on the west side to make sure we're taking into account what they need for utilities, trying to organize stuff with garbage if possible, find out what their plans are for the backs of their buildings and those kind of things. But tonight I wanted to bring the video. SEH put together like a fly-through of the plan for the west side, showing the east side with it. So I wanted to show this to you because we needed a room. We had an enclosed room. So I'll shut the lights off over here. So if you want me to stop and replay something, I can do that. Just let me know. I turned off the music. It's kind of annoying. So this is looking at, okay, so just to start orient you.
Oh, swans.
This is the building at the south end on the west side, this Tony Jason's building, opposite that South Plaza on the Riverwalk. So we're planning on doing seat walls just like we did on the east side that are farther up, and putting a wall up the whole length of the west side. And there's geese in the water.
That's nice.
I thought it was a swan. Oh,
A swan, maybe swan, yeah.
swans? Whistling swan.
So that's Veterans. This is the South Pedestrian Bridge.
Oh, there's Mike Starr walking.
That's it. It is. There's the bike shop back.
Yep. That's Norbert's, the Norbert. That's the seawalls on the east side. Lots of traffic going very fast. The buildings on the west look a little blank because it takes a lot to put those facades on there, so. This is the other set of seat walls we're planning on putting in there. Right now, this is where all those transformers are sitting at the end of this existing wall. This may be cut down with a railing on top of it like we have on the other side. We haven't, that's one of the things that hasn't been decided yet. It depends on some of the cost on that. But this is the back of Hussar's building.
Looks look nice.
Yeah. Is that parking spaces, the blacktop? Is that, what's the width on that? Is
Yes,
that like 10
we-
10 feet, 12 feet?
Actually, the walkway is 12 feet, but
Yep.
it's wider here. So what we've done was, we talked to Mike, what we wanna do is, we're not gonna allow cars to park on the Riverwalk like they do now. So south of the North Pedestrian Bridge, this would be a 12-foot walkway and then a parkway here with some trees on it and a curb. So they can't park up there. But we will still have space for the cars Mike parks behind Hussar's to pull in here, and then this would be a mountable curb, so they could pull up on it and then back into parking spots, just like he does now. He'd actually probably have more room than he does now to maneuver to get into those spaces. So everyone that's got parking now, with the number of cars that they have, we're making provision for them to continue to do that, because they have tenants upstairs. They need to have parking behind the building for that, so that's part of what we're doing. One of the things we're talking about all these business owners with. So it's a North Pedestrian Bridge, North Plaza on the right with big trees. There's MOA. At the north end, this is where currently this is that wall with the big storm sewer coming out of it that faces south. So the plan is to cut this down, and this would be like some kind of a kayak launch. We may just have it be like it is, because the water comes up and down so much, so you could just launch off of here anywhere you were on that walkway. And we're gonna have we wanna have a fish deck here. Now, they've showed up here and everything. That's not what we're planning. We're planning on just putting a fish deck here, which would be accessible because this is an accessible walkway to get down to the water. So we would put a little, walkway off of it to get an accessible fishing deck. fish deck.
And it would be concrete, we wouldn't have the wood.
Yes, no, this won't be wood. It would be concrete. And the paving's gonna be just like it is on the east side, that window pane pattern, but 12 feet instead of 8 feet.
Cindy, what's the height where the guy's standing on the end there? What do you think that's from the water to the cement? Is that 2 feet?
Oh,
Would you-
this would go right down into the water.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it fluctuates from spring to end of
It
summer.
does.
Now this year not that much, but I bet 4 or 5 feet. What would be covered if in the springtime? How far up would that be?
I looked at
You
that
think-
on the east side, the water this spring would come right up
It
to
would?
the top of
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Yeah, so we need to make this so that it can be submerged.
Yeah. Okay.
With
And
no-
again, this
so-
was a high year. I got it, but you're gonna
Yes.
have to expect that.
Yep, and it's gonna go, that's why we were talking about how to do a kayak launch here. But in order to make it accessible, you need a gangway that floats up and down. And it's like, for that much difference in height, going up 4 feet, that would be impossible. So we're thinking about just allowing this to be the launch, whatever the water height is. And then, there'd be riprap along the edge of here. So they would just launch wherever the water came up to it. I
Right.
don't know any other way to do it
No.
with water fluctuating this much. But you can see we have that same wall up here. We're not quite sure what the treatment's gonna be, if we're gonna leave it, depending upon the cost of the whole project, or do something else with that, so. This would probably be grass. Mike says that the grass will survive being submerged for a couple weeks in the spring. On the north end, you can see the new parking lot, and this would be the one that we would have, Cryo Camp would still own. And here's the walkway underneath
Oh,
Highway
I like that.
33.
That's all I'm saying.
I like it a lot.
And this would be lit underneath there too,
Okay.
so it would feel safe.
Will
There
the
would be
water, could the water possibly come above that?
Yes, that was one of the other things, when it goes back across here, I'll show you what we talked about. So this is the plaza on the east side, the south plaza, with ducks in the water.
They're not moving, how come?
Oh, they're just floating there.
Oh. But they weren't bobbing. Oh, okay.
I guess so. So there's an overhead view too. Well, this is the South Pedestrian Bridge again, just to show people using it. Biking across it. This is bike and pedestrian, the whole thing. So it's good that it's gonna be a 12-foot width on the other side. And he runs right through this lane.
What a slob.
So there's looking from south to north from an overhead view. Along this whole river walk then, the plan is we wanna capture all the stormwater that comes off this walkway. And there's downspouts that come off these buildings, and some of them are buried into the bank. Some of them just spill out onto the walkway, which makes it really icy and slippery in the wintertime. So the plan is to capture all those, put them in a multiple collective stormwater pipes, and then treat them before they get dumped into the river. But we will have green space along the river in some areas where there's a wider place to put trees. But then there's a space to put pervious paving, which the water from the walkway will flow into, get treated before it goes into the river. So we're talking to business owners too, say, well, would you rather have green space or pervious pavers outside of there? And where there's like an area where you can get right next to the river, we would have railings right next to there. Otherwise, it would just be on the east side like we have it. Where there's green space, there's no railing. And this is the theater, where that cantilever is now, the plan is to get rid of it and put a wall there, so that you could drive emergency vehicles from one end to the other, instead of having that be a barrier. This is the other set of, seat walls we're talking about this is the end of that existing wall. there's Vespaga Park. So to answer your question about the passage under the river, there's a point, this is where the walkway starts to come down to this way. And then there's an area where it's level up this end, and then when you get past this spot, it starts to drop again. We would have to have, some kind of barricades there that when it was underwater, we could close that off. On the other side of the parking lot, there'll be a walkway that goes up to Highway 33. So if you're on a bike and you're on a trail, you can still get up to Highway 33, go down to the crossing just like you do now on the east side, cross the street, go back over to the north end of it. But we have to have something there that would let people know it's closed.
Has this been submitted to the DNR?
Yes, we actually met with FEMA, the DNR, the DOT, because of the bridge, and we met with all of
Right.
them and ran this all by them, and they were okay with it.
See, when we tried to do this, when Gary Anderson was still here, we were gonna put it underneath there like that, but on a cantilever type thing. But they said, potential for it being underwater, you can't do that.
Yeah, well,
And they said we couldn't do it at all, and so it had to
Yeah.
ixnay the whole process at that time.
so that's it.
Looks good.
Yeah,
Looks really
it's really
nice. I
nice.
mean,
Nice.
it's impressive.
I think it's worth noting the business owners have been really supportive. There have not been negative comments about anything that is being proposed in the design or collaborating with garbage and stormwater. And if anything, they're looking to improve the back of their buildings as part of this
Right.
project. And will utilize the Riverwalk as an impetus for them to do that. It's been crazy positive meeting with all the business owners in that area.
So sign them up for 50 grand each. Huh? Now, but ask them that question once and see how positive Mike Huzar is.
Okay,
So the business's patrons wanted to park, they would have to park along the road or maybe in Crowd Camp's parking lot,
In the
that's
public
about it.
parking, yeah.
What we're trying to do with, Crowd Camp, felons, sales, and hussars is
me.
from Crowd Camp's parking area south. We're gonna have a 16-foot easement that would act like a private driveway, because that'll stop cars from just driving down there and parking, because they have only a limited amount of parking spaces for their tenants, so it's not gonna be like a two-way road with people parking all over like it is now. But we needed to maintain easements so that they can get to their properties, plus they can get semis backed in there for deliveries and things like they do right now. So the 16-foot easement outside of the parkway that I showed you, that's gonna be for those kind of things, maintenance, deliveries, that kind of thing.
So question for, I'm gonna stay with Huzar's building. New Riverwalk is built, from the Riverwalk to their building, that asphalt, that storm sewer, is that going to be redone
Yes.
when this is, okay?
Part of what we wanna do in exchange for having them give us this easement for the road is to rebuild that asphalt area. And a lot of the business owners along the whole Riverwalk that have gravel or old asphalt or old concrete behind their buildings have asked us if they can kind of pony up on top of our project and get that stuff replaced or paved when we do ours. So we'll have to try to work something out to make that happen, so the whole thing will look better. It's not just the Riverwalk and then it stops and you get this cracked old asphalt.
right.
So, yeah, they've been real receptive to that, asking us if they can, get in on that.
That'd be the smart way to do it.
Be cost effective.
Yes.
Right, and we'll address like where there's potholes and the grades don't work, where stuff doesn't drain, it'll all be fixed.
And that's, it's, everything down there is like this.
It
as far
is.
as elevations go.
Yeah, so,
do you have,
Is that part of the bid back there, that they could use bid money to
Yep.
improve their building?
Yes, it is. The bid is a contributor on the east side. They contributed $50,000 on the east side. And they have committed, they haven't committed a number yet, but they've committed to be a part of the improvement on the west side as well.
do we have a ballpark figure of what this is gonna cost?
Not yet. We're still working with SEH to nail down some of the final details. And they're also working with engineering because, I think I mentioned this at our last meeting, that, we have requirements for stormwater and like treating for phosphorus and total suspended solids that the city's gotta meet. So SEH is working with engineering to try to figure some of the most efficient ways to treat some of that in the whole city. But they're also looking at this area to see what we can do to help that effort. What we're also doing is putting in what you call green infrastructure. It's like infiltration basins or tree pits where water runs into that, gets treated naturally in soil, things like that. It can be used as a kind of a pilot program for the city to see how it works before you get into like the downtown where you live this is an urban area and that's what they use in those areas to kind of accomplish those things. But they haven't decided how that's all gonna work and how much that would be applicable to this area. So that's something that SEH, it's a benefit, they're working with the engineering, plus they're working with our project to kind of combine some of that. We're looking at we don't wanna rip it up again when it's done, so we're trying to make the best choices now that we can.
Any other questions for Cindy? Okay, if not, we'll move on to new business. We've tabled item A since Megan's not here. But on the B, resolution authorizing the transfer of the YARC funds for payment of expenses. You may have gotten a copy of it. It is in the white, not ivory, but white sheet. And it's amount of $1,000 from that yard fund. We currently have, as stated in here, $7,907 from this fund account. And these are expenses for staff, equipment, and supplies for the therapeutic recreation programs. And this is a separate fund totally designated for that. And this is something, just as a bit of a background, what's her name now? I can't remember. Who runs our therapeutic recreation?
Mary Fiegel.
Yeah, well, with Mary, for years, Mary has been paying for all these out of her pocket and everything, and finally said, hey, stop that, there's money available, and so she's finally amendable to it and everything else, and this is in fact, I think this is pretty cheap, but anyway, so I entertain a motion to, or if there's any discussion, and if not, I entertain a motion to authorize a transfer of these funds.
Motion to approve. Second.
Further discussion? It's been moved and seconded to authorize the transfer of YARC funds for payment of expenses, a total of $1,000. All in favor of said motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign, motion's carried. Thank you. Moving onward, playgrounds discussion and desired improvements and or renovations.
I'll start and then Mike can jump in, but we've had a couple of contacts from community members. I think the cool thing about this conversation beginning is that in both cases, one is a Silverbrook existing neighbor who was part of the build 20 years ago when it happened and now has grandkids and is interested in a refresh, or at least a refreshing part of the Silverbrook playground. And then the other group is two individuals that was in the paper recently, if you noticed the article, about the All Abilities Playground. Both of them started with a reach out to the office, and Caroline contacted Mike and myself and the team, and we had a chance to put them in contact with the Villa Park folks. And Pastor Lather, Troy does a great job of being willing to share their process and how they spoke with the city and had success working with Craig and Mike on improving Villa Park, and I think did a great job. The second meeting with the All Abilities folk, I was present for, along with Pastor Lather, and got to see him in action doing it. But he does a nice job of just sharing with folks, and it just speaks to the Villa Park partnership even greater, knowing we all know he's a great guy and a good community guy. But for him to be able to share with a brand new idea on how to talk to somebody like Mike or talk to somebody like Jay when you're coming in and asking about funding and how these projects get done from start to finish is really cool to see. And that was in both cases was a springboard. The follow-up meeting that Mike and I had at Silverbrook I'll let Mike talk through the details of that playground, but you could tell that the individual had been well-schooled by Troy before that meeting. So I'll start with that, and then you can talk about
Great.
existing Silverbrook playground and
Um,
timeline and all that good stuff.
okay, little background with Silverbrook Playground. It's approximately 20 years old. The average life expectancy of a playground system like this is about 30 years. We do annual inspections, annual upgrades, things like that, when something's broke, needs to be repaired, so the system we have over there, it's still very safe and very functional. But Jody was looking at possibly incorporating some new amenities, basically for handicapped individuals, maybe a handicap merry-go-round, an accessible merry-go-round, and some other amenities, add several amenities to that playground. And again, just to the west side of the existing playground there, we removed all the ash trees out of there and we've replanted. And we specifically replanted trees to leave room for future playground. So there would be access off the public sidewalk there into the park a little bit where we could add several amenities. It's not like we're adding a new park or a new playground, it's just we're gonna extend that playground a little bit to the west. The existing trees around it, will help with shade. So she was pretty excited about adding 2 or 3 elements to that playground, making it more accessible, basically. So very positive. Again, her meeting with Troy ahead of time, understanding that the city doesn't have a big checkbook and we just write out checks for projects and things. That made a big difference. That made a huge difference. So she's fired up. She's ready to go. And I gave her the green light. She said she's going to start knocking on doors and talking to businesses and things like that. So, and she's done a little bit of her own research on the cost associated with, a merry-go-round like what she's talking about. We're talking $15,000 to $20,000. This equipment is not cheap. So yeah, it was very good, very positive. We like our neighbors like that.
Is there any way we can refresh? I see we've got a lot of fading on some of the equipment and everything. Is there anything we can do to refresh it if it is still essentially functional?
A lot of our playgrounds are faded. They are.
I know, so it's bicentennial big time also, by the
Oh,
way.
yes.
Yeah.
There's not much we can do about it.
Okay.
It's faded plastic.
Just no way we can refresh that at all?
Wingate Park, it was red at one time. It's maybe pink. It's not even hot pink anymore. It's pink.
No.
It's a pink pirate ship.
Right. Yeah.
It is.
Works for me.
Okay. good.
So that's Silverbrook.
Well, and then the other one, who saw it? Commissioner, the article in the paper.
Your
Okay.
wife or your,
Yeah,
very good putting that in there.
I didn't put that in the
Oh,
paper.
they did, okay.
One of the two principals is Shannon Shambo, and it's, I'll say no relation, but yet at our meeting recently, she
There
said,
is.
yeah, she said that
Brothers.
We're
my
all
oldest
related
brother,
somewhere now.
Tom, is a genealogist, and her Uncle Jay, or
I don't
she
know.
does have an Uncle Jay. So she said she's been asked if she's related to Jay, and she has to say yes. If you've heard of the Jay Shambo, that's a race car driver in Slinger, it's not me. It's her uncle. Anyhow, long story
Yeah,
short.
there
about
goes
that.
my free tickets to Slinger.
I know, sorry, I'm not a race car driver. A lot of people ask me if I race, and I know where the gas goes. I change my own oil. Anyhow, she and her partner Sarah Stone have a very big lift plan for them. They are excited about the possibility of all abilities type playground within West Bend. Sarah has a special needs daughter, and she finds herself going out of Washington County to many of the neighboring communities that have these playgrounds in place. And I think it started with the two of them being there together and saying, hey, we always drive over to Port Washington together and end up eating lunch and spending the day of it. Why can't we do this in our own municipality? So she again approached the office, and Carolyn put her in contact with us. We had a meeting with them just this past week. Cindy and Mike were both there and did an awesome job showing, listening, and then showing some possible potential locations of where within the city that this kind of a playground could exist. They know the enormous amount of resources that it would take for such a playground if it's to be located in a place that already has parking lot and restrooms. Yeah, it could be a $500,000 bill. If it's to be located in a place like Parkside O that doesn't have any of those amenities in place, it could be way more. Like, and I know how much Cindy likes hearing numbers ahead of time because we don't know. Just like the Riverwalk, we don't know what the estimate is, but it could be a $1.1 million lift, or who knows what that kind of cost. It all depends on square footage and amenities. And Mike does this stuff every day in his sleep, so he was able to talk through with them the next steps, and similar to the first playground with Jody, but a much larger scale. Since then, Mike, you want to talk about like what's next?
Sure. So basically, we gave Sarah and Jody Sarah and Shannon a little bit of homework for themselves. Cindy had some maps for them, looking at some different possibilities. Different properties we already own, different properties that we have nothing on, because this would definitely be a destination. If we're going to drive there, so we need room for parking, possibly room for buses, certainly restrooms, shade, areas where people can rest, et cetera, et cetera. And then go ahead and build a $500,000 playground on a $200,000 fall surface, because we're looking at a poured-in-place rubber surface, not our wood chips and things like that. So again, the price could be all over the place. So because we don't know the property, we don't know how big it's going to be, things like that. So some of the homework we gave them was go look at some of the different properties. Here's some maps. Some of them, again, it's all the variables you can imagine. Do you want kids to be able to ride their bikes there? Down the Eisenbahn, down the sidewalk, whatever. Or is it going to be a destination where people are going to drive? So many, many different variables. So, and these two ladies are fired up. I mean, the enthusiasm where they know this is not going to be fundraised in 6 months. I think they're really in it for the long haul. Since actually last evening, we've been in touch with Port Washington, Franklin, Cedarburg. We're waiting for some information. Yeah, we're waiting for information from Cedarburg and Waukesha, things like that. So, and the Jackson playground that was just recently finished. Because for us, this is a new amenity within the park system. To other communities and businesses, this is not. This is what some companies do every day. So before we reinvent the wheel with a $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 playground, we're going to do some fact checking and we're going to go visit Franklin. I've been in touch. In Franklin, the big one down there is called Kayla's Playground. And long story short, Kayla was a young girl. She had some disabilities, things like that. I was actually put in touch with Kayla's mom today, so I'm trying to figure out, possibly next Tuesday, we might be going to Franklin to go talk to, literally Kayla's mom's going to be there to talk to us about the fundraising. The city will be there also, construction, things like that. So we can review how they did, what worked, what didn't work, what mistakes we don't want to make the same mistakes. Nick's got us in touch with Port Washington. We're looking at Port now and again in late September. Port's an all-inclusive playground. They constructed it 17 years ago for $450,000, et cetera, et cetera. They're putting a $217,000 renovation into it this year. Some of it's, they're adding new things, and some of it, they need to renovate the existing because it's wearing out, which is good, it's getting used. So again, what can we learn from them and that we don't reinvent the wheel and make the same mistakes? So we get through some of this, I'll say, fact finding. Sarah and Shannon get through some of this fact finding. We'll get back together, and then I think we will probably pull in 1 or 2 playground manufacturers or representatives so they can again educate us on this is what they can do, this is what's out there, and then we start talking money, and how far out are we gonna, how long is this gonna take before we have a budget? At this point in time, I have no idea. And the budget's gonna be a budget range anyways, because we're gonna raise money, we're gonna go out for bid, and we're gonna do RFPs and things like that, because it's gonna be a public works project and all that stuff. So as far as funding goes, we certainly did not make any promises like the city has any funding towards it or anything else like that. impact fees or anything like that. It's ground floor right now is kind of where we're at, so. But, I was kind of pumped meeting with these ladies. They were great.
You know,
And with reality, they were excited with some reality, not like, wow, this is gonna be pretty and easy and all that. They understand this is an uphill battle, so, sorry, Jim.
No, it's not, no. I had an opportunity, after reading the paper and everything, took a ride with my wife over to Port Washington and looked at it, and it's quite nice, and it was really very popular. We were there Saturday, but they were having a big event in the park. Their beer garden was right across the road and
Oh,
everything
sure.
else, and all sorts of stuff going on. But my wife pointed out, she says, "Boy, this is really familiar because they got all this picket fence around it, everybody's got names on it, they got a kiosk and everything." And the more I looked at it, it's identical to the one in Economowalk. And the reason I know Economowalk is not because of Hebner, but at the trailhead for the Lake Country Bicycle Path, the northern one, is in Jefferson Park, right there, and that's where they had built that. And it is identical, almost to the types of elements that are used. And I remember several years ago talking there, and one of the, who was the guy that applied to get a job here and went over to, he was in Economowalk for a while. Anyway, as a park guy, one of his assistants, whatever it was, he happened to be cutting grass and was also doing all sorts of things. I was talking to him. And they were saying, yeah, this thing was built exclusively with donations, and it's because it's in a big park and at the trailhead, all the city supplied was the land and nothing more. And they're also on the signs, and both of them, they talk about any questions or problems or anything else, contact friends. I think it's called Promise Playground, and the other one's another name. And so the city just has a maintenance aspect, but then the people that have been responsible for this are the ones that pretty much police it and everything else, which is kind of refreshing, to be very honest with you. I was saying, whoa, now this is nice, and I think it's the people that they get going. But they also have, both of them make kiosks of, if you donate this much, this is what category you go to, all the way up, I think, to $50,000. Starts at 1,000, I don't know, 500,000, what have you, going on up. But it was amazing, the structure, I just said, oh my God. And that my wife pointed it out to me before I even noticed it, I thought was really impressive, so, except it was painted a different color. That's the only thing. So
Yeah,
it's interesting to see how it'll evolve, and I'm sure that there's areas that would work out very well and be conducive to it, but I think it's in its infancy right now, so it's hard to say which is the best way to go.
I definitely follow through with Port Washington. My family lives there, and there was a whole citywide involved in that. Like Jim said, with the picket fences, that people get behind that, especially all disabilities. I really, it'd be a home run, and I think City of West Bend would get behind it also. So I'd follow up with Port big time also, because I'm glad you're headed over that way. But that was the community. That wasn't just 10 donors that donated $100,000. That was 1,000 donors that donated $1,000. So I think we could replicate that here in town.
These kind of projects they weren't that common a while ago, but now they're becoming more
Yeah.
and more. So there's more information out there, and playground manufacturers are more versed in designing these things. As a matter of fact, I sent Shannon and Sarah, the American Society of Landscape Architects just put out a new design guideline for inclusive playgrounds, so I sent them that. They can look at playgrounds with a more critical eye as to
Yep.
what, and think about other things. It's not just handicap physically, it's
Oh, it's
auditory, it's visual, all these different types. Plus, if you don't have a handicapped kid, but you're like a veteran or a senior and you have trouble getting around, they're good because they can get in there by the kids. It's easier for them to move around the playground themselves and keep track of their kids, so it'll be a project if it happens.
Any other questions or comments or anything to that effect? Okay, moving on. Item D, special events. Here we go. First one to be considered is Jackie, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'll just do all three of them if you're okay with that.
I prefer to do each one individually.
Perfect,
please.
got it, okay. They're on your yellow sheets. The first one we're gonna do is the area Catholic parishes. They've been doing the Faith and Family Festival now for several years. This is a returning event. It's a church picnic, Sunday, September 15th.
Any further questions for Jackie? All in favor of said motion of granting this, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign, motion's carried. Moving on, Jack.
Kettle Moraine YMCA is going to be doing their 50th anniversary celebration event on Sunday, September 22nd in the Regner Park Entertainment area. They're going to have kids' games and food, and then they did ask if we could broadcast the Packer game, which I unfortunately told them is not in the copyrighted laws, so we cannot. But they did want to actually put up TVs, which they cannot do, so unfortunately. NFL is a little against that. So anyhow, so they're not going to have the Packer game on, but I think they'll probably work around it in some way.
The other way.
Yes.
Questions on this item? If not, all in favor of approving this, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign, motion's carried.
Final one is the TS Alliance, which is tuberosclerosis event. They do a run walk. They used to do this event in April. They were always our first event of the year out of the Centennial Shelter, and then they walk a track around the block. And then last year they said, oh, we're not going to do it this April. We really don't have anybody to work the event. They came to me in probably July of last year and said, we really miss the fellowship of the run walk. We really want to put it, can we come back in, will you let us do this in October? And I'm like, yeah, we can work this out. So they really enjoyed, I think it was a lot better weather in October, and so now they've come back again, so they're going to be doing it again in October this year. So we're glad that they're back, and I think that they've found that apparently it's a very isolating illness and requires a lot of one-on-one, so this becomes a fellowship as well. So it's kind of cool.
Any questions concerning this request? If not, all in favor of authorizing this, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign, motion is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on, reports. Chairman defers to the end of the agenda. Secretary?
Nothing today.
Okay, quarterly trust report. Here it is.
We don't have it.
Oh, we don't have it.
We don't have it tonight.
Okay. All right, move on. Conservation supervisor, I guess we don't have. Is anybody speaking for that issue? I guess not.
We have one hired.
Young ladies were hired.
Oh, okay.
Or ladies.
Oh, well, that's good to hear.
Carolyn, who do we have hired?
Yeah, so we hired Courtney Cox Polson. She will be starting September 3rd. Very motivated young woman she's very excited to get into to La Florent and promote our programs there and expand the offerings and be a part of, really be a part of that effort. So
Very good, great.
she's gonna jump right in with Little Hikers programs, and Paul Deschamps from La Florent has met with her a number of times as well, and they have a plan of getting her started on some programs there already, so, yeah. She'll be at our next meeting. You can meet her.
Good, looking forward to that, okay. Moving on, tourism and event coordinator, Jackie.
Really briefly, since we last met, we've had very large events between myself and with grand assistance from Mike's staff. We assist every year the Art and Chalk Festival. This year we actually were able to connect power from the Riverwalk East. Thank you, Cindy, and thanks for getting that all worked out. We're now working on, excuse me, a plan so that we can, with great ease, be able to develop that area into an event area so that we can bring in power platforms along Veterans Avenue on the Riverwalk East, and it really makes it much more conducive for event organizers, particularly in this day and age of food trucks who need power. So anyhow, we've done Art and Chalk Festival. We had summer wrap up, and I'm sure Nick will talk to you more about this. This year we actually expanded the parking. We had to open up the soccer fields. It was that busy. It was probably about 3/4 full, the soccer field, in addition to the parking lot. And it's the wrap-up of all of our summer programming. I'm sure you're gonna talk about it, so I'll
Was that a
stop
Wednesday?
there.
Was
Summer
that a
dance
Wednesday night?
recital.
Summer dance recital,
Recital,
yeah. In Regent Park.
Was that a Wednesday night?
That was on
Thursday.
Thursday night.
Thursday? I wonder what was,
Yeah, it was busy. It was very busy. And then on that Friday night, we have the Youth Summer Theater final performance. And so our theater program, which usually has about 50 kids in it, they come into the park for the day, and we have food, and then the kids do a show, a full show that's written for them. So big, again, big family event. The following weekend, we had the Geocache Bash. That loads in on a Thursday and goes all day Friday until about 8 o'clock Friday night. This year they actually did a flash mob on Main Street, so that was pretty cool. And then all day Saturday night, and then into Sunday, they have a pancake breakfast Sunday morning. That is the largest hotel occupancy. The Cash Bash generally occupies all the hotels from around Key Wascom all the way south into almost Germantown, way south of Jackson, all the way east to Port Washington and west, sometimes as far as Hartford, and fills almost every hotel. I know that any other event that's going on at that same time complains because the hotels are very expensive if there's any to be had. So very large turnout there, and thank God we've had good weather. We had the Hope Notes Battle of the Bands. It's a new one we picked up this year. Life of Hope Suicide Prevention did a Battle of the Bands, and they did a really fine job on it. Working with them, they had good sound people in, so good event. And then finally, in your little pile of papers that you received, there's a little tiny card that I kind of wrestled somebody that was going to be doing a concert, a band concert. My partner Dean, who some of you know, his band, they got back together from 25, 30, 35 years ago. And they wanted to do a concert, and I said, I got a deal for you. So this event that's going to happen on this Saturday, they play music from Chicago, and I can tell you, Dean's one of the horn players, and he's practicing in our house. It's quite good. But they've been practicing it in my house. But they play music from Chicago to Santana, Doobies, Eagles, all the way through the Stones, that type of thing. It's going to be in Regna Park on Saturday. It's going to start at 1 o'clock. There's going to be a free will donation for the MS Society at the gate. All food has been donated. Tom Schweig has donated everything, food-wise, to be sold towards the recreation center. So this is the first little put the toe in the water. I wrenched the Dance Tummy Troupe and the Spotlight Productions Theater Company into doing the beer and food servicing. All profits are going towards the recreation center. So it's just our first little thing. So if you're around, the weather's going to be fabulous. Just come down and have a brat and a beer.
is Dean gonna wear his porcupine hat?
Yes. He
By
bought
all
one,
all means, I
yeah.
have to go with that.
He got a new one at the House of Blues when we were in
Oh my
there.
God,
So,
no,
yeah.
he's ruining his image if he's
Absolutely.
replacing him, but that's okay.
He sings and performs, yeah. So.
Any questions for Jackie? If not, moving on, Recreation Supervisor Nick.
June 7th, the beach opened for swim, and it closed Sunday, August 18th. This past Sunday, the splash pad will remain open through Labor Day, 12 to 5. June, August were kind of cooler months as far as attendance, but July, we had the first 3 weeks in July, were very busy at the beach. Obviously, we had 4th of July weekend there. We had the mud run weekend, and then it stayed pretty consistently warm the week after as well. So we had just under 18,000 visitors at the beach, 17,973 to be exact. We had a lot of our groups, summer groups that come from all the way from Milwaukee to Sheboygan. They come in as a group and visit. I don't know, you've probably seen the buses parked in the parking lots. They usually come on weekdays, 11 to 3 is typically when they arrive. And we, fun fact is in 2017, we had a revenue of just over $2,000, and in the last 2 summers, we've grossed over $3,000, 18 and 19. So, getting a good reputation. obviously maintaining that, and groups are coming back. We've picked up some new groups, some disability groups, like I said, summer groups, you name it. We hosted Super Slide days. The park staff comes, and the inflatable slide that we use for Mud Run, we set it up on the north side, and that's kind of our last hurrahs. Try to obviously, get people out there as well, kind of an incentive to come out to Regner Park. It's kind of a little bit of a fundraiser for the beach as well, because it's costs an additional $4 wristband to use the slide in addition to the daily fee. And we did that on July 31st, and we did it on August 14th. Their cooler attendance was a little bit down. I think we had like maybe 50-some, 30-some in those 2 days. So we had a great seasonal staff at the beach this year. They did an outstanding, phenomenal job keeping everyone safe out there all summer long. Second session for summer activities for our programs that we offer, instructional programs, theater, dance, etc. That finished up on Thursday, August 1st. And then we had the summer wrap up, our dance recital out at Regner Park, Silver Lining Stage on that Thursday. And then, as Jackie mentioned, we had Beauty and the Beast for our children's theater program on the 2nd. We had large attendance, great crowds for that. Staffing for fall, moving on to fall programs, which will start in a few weeks here. Looking at hiring an archery instructor. My archery instructor that I've had the last few years, she is attending college out of state. So if you know anybody that is willing or wanting or has some archery skills and wants to teach today's youth, tomorrow's future, how to shoot a bow and arrow, send them my way. So, because we're hiring. Working on getting some volunteer flag football coaches. Obviously, we're starting up that league. We play Saturday mornings out at Quaz Creek, Diamond 1. I think our first weekend is September 14th, so we kind of get rolling with that after Labor Day. So like I said, we getting the parents together. Coaches meeting is Tuesday, September 3rd, that evening after Labor Day, to kind of go over the coaches, to get their information, their equipment, rules, all that stuff, and we get rolling on the 14th. Other programs that we have in the fall will be instructional baseball, soccer, and we do some instructional flag football too for the K4, K5. Our music lessons that we partner with Music Academy, we got some new offerings with that program. We're going to do vocal, group vocal, power vocal, and we're going to do some bucket drums program as well. And we also have a music lab that they're going to do on Saturday afternoons at their place, at their location downtown, their new spot. So that's what I have.
Any questions for Nick?
What was the numbers last year at Regner at the beach?
Last year we had, for attendance,
Yeah.
we had just over 18,000. So it was 18,102.
Okay, so right in the same as, okay.
Yeah, so we had 17,973 this year. Over revenue, it was 65,443. Last year was 65,680. So we basically duplicated what we had. We did increase staff wages, lifeguard wages, slightly this year. So our expenses aren't finalized; they're not in yet. But obviously, hopefully, we came close to breaking even. That's kind of where we want to be at the beach, is even or slightly under, to take a loss, obviously. So it's not the. Any other questions on beach or anything?
Looks like you didn't have time to take a deep breath, Nick, with everything you had going and got going. Excellent, very good, very good. Glad to see
We're
it.
trying to build a rec center. Please support it. Come out Saturday, buy a hamburger, buy a brat, or just drop a few bucks in the bucket. There you go.
Great, okay, good. Any other questions for Nick?
Calories for that.
Okay, moving on. Superintendent of Parks, Mike.
The tour was my report.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
missed it.
Thank you.
Could you fill me in?
Sure, later, some other day. We'll meet Jay for coffee at the
Okay.
over then.
Did you take?
Park Project Manager, Cindy.
I think I'll say the same thing.
Okay.
Ditto,
You think or will?
I will. Yeah, I talked enough tonight.
Director Jay.
I'll give the interim director report. I'll start by saying thanks to Mike and Cindy and the rest of the team for assisting with the tour tonight. It was really exciting to see all the new stuff and have the commissioners have a chance to get an eye for the future of what's coming down the pipe as well. It's a little unfortunate that Megan wasn't able to join us, but Jim, you and Mike had offered to potentially give her a tour as well, and I think that'll be a really positive thing to.
Do I get clearance to drive through on the sidewalks through the parks if I
As long as
take
Mike
her?
doesn't see you.
Huh? Well, do I need a written?
PD calls me, you're
You don't know me.
You drive, if you drive a Parks van, you probably
Oh,
can get
there
away
you
with it. Just come by and pick it up. I've had a chance to meet with all park staff and I'll say you folks as commissioners, since we've met last as a group. Also met with Paul and Gary out at Lac La Ronde, Laurie Friends Group. So anybody that'll take a meeting with me, I've been trying to meet with, and we'll continue to do that. I still have a list of some folks that I'm working my way through. I'll share that I've been communicating with staff on a, I'll say, regular basis, and been in a fair amount of meetings. Cindy mentioned the Riverwalk stuff that we've been doing with business owners, but there's lots that's going on in our very active park system and parks department. So great work all, and thanks for including me as appropriate in the emails and not inundating me with stuff that you know that I don't need to be a part of as well.
Okay, then I've got the question, and this will be the chairman's point. What's the status on replacing Craig Hefner's position?
Status is the same as the last time we
So
talked.
does this mean then you're not gonna replace it?
I'm not
I
saying
need,
that.
I need to know what you're gonna do. Are you gonna replace it with somebody? Are you gonna replace it with a CPRP? What have you? It seems like this has been going on for 7 or 8 weeks now. It seems to me you're dragging your feet for whatever the reason, and I find that unacceptable, because I think you're a pretty intelligent guy, and for some reason, you don't seem to be able to take a step forward or anything else, if nothing else, to reassure this commission that we're moving forward in the right direction.
Or-
And I find that I'm very disappointed that you are taking that approach.
Yeah, we're absolutely moving forward in the right direction.
Maybe you could enlighten us.
You know what I know. I've shared that I've been meeting with folks and take good notes, and
Have you talked to John Wagner or Bill Bass yet?
no,
I know you haven't.
yeah, they're on my list.
I would hope so, I would think, but I think that the longer we wait, I've had 3 people talk to me. Andy Gonerine approached me the other day. Robbie Ropan approached me the other day. Paul Fisher approached me the other day. All these people are concerned about what's going on. They said, we've got tremendous momentum going. Why are we dragging our feet? Why are we in this thing? We have to get somebody in there. Obviously, we can't expect you to do what Craig did, because you've got a lot of other things on your plate. And you need somebody that is attuned to the park and rec profession. And most notably, we've always required a CPRP designation as part of it. Now, I don't know if you have that, and that doesn't matter because you're city administrator. So I wouldn't expect you to have it. Be nice if you did, but you don't, I don't think.
I do not.
He doesn't, okay, I get that. Anyway, I mean, this is what I'm driving with. This is very discouraging, and I hate to think that we're gonna go down in this, the quality and everything else, because that's what's gonna happen. These folks can only do so much, and then when people come and approach them about things, usually there's things you direct to the director of the department to start moving forward on it. Well, if you are torn from a number of other places, so it's not fair to expect you to do that. But I think what is fair is to expect you to expedite this thing and say, okay, we're moving forward, we're gonna post it now. That's what I'd like to hear in the next meeting.
I understand.
And is that unrealistic?
I don't know.
Oh, yes, you do. I'm sorry, I think you do. For some reason, your predecessor, Dennis Melvin, didn't have any problems. Now, granted, we're going way back.
Yep, I know Dennis. He's a
Yeah,
good guy.
you know, he's an excellent guy, and he was very attuned to what this department meant and what it has accomplished, and what this department has really accomplished since Craig was here. We've moved so far forward and don't want to lose that. I mean, you have to admit that being considered as the finalist for the National Gold Award has got to have some merit and has to reflect on what this department staff did and everything else and moving forward. You're losing that reputation. If we are standing still, you're stagnant. You do that. It would be a shame to see something like this been built and accomplished to go down the pot because for whatever reason. And as I said, I'm very disappointed. I thought you would be moving a lot more forward. I thought you valued this a lot more than what it seems apparent. That's the chairman's point. Any other question? Bring anything else up? If you want to respond. If not, this will come before the meeting. I hereby adjourn it. Thank you.